welcome to our monthly get-together that we do. Every month, one teacher who works with Openground takes a subject that we're passionate about and talk about it and do some practice and get to hear from you. So thank you for setting aside this time in a busy life on a Sunday night, which is no small feat. So my name is Mary McIntyre, and I live in Brisbane. And I'm one of the people who teaches MBSR courses and co-teaches retreats around Australia. And it's a real honor to be with you here tonight. I teach on Zoom as well. And I remember when I started teaching this way, I thought, oh, this is just too weird. But I've come to like it, actually, strangely. I've never done a 1 hour thing, but why not? Here we go. I've done 2 hours and things like that. So the plan tonight is that I'll say a few words and then we'll meditate together. And this might be a meditation, way of meditating that's slightly new to you. It might be familiar. And then we'll reflect after the meditation. And the reflection will involve either journaling what went on in your meditation, and I'll say more about that later, or just being silent and reflecting on the meditation, because part of mindfulness is remembering and actually reflecting on something that's happened either in our life or maybe during practice, and then some sharing. But I'd like to also have this, if you want to speak up, please just put your hand up and unmute yourself so that this can be a conversation. Yeah. How does that sound as a plan for tonight? Yeah? Good. Okay, super. So my subject that I chose to talk about is openness as opposed to drudgery. And what are we practicing? Is our practice a practice of openness or a practice of drudgery? And at first I was thinking about this just in terms of formal practice, but actually I think our life is a practice. And sometimes we all probably wonder, you know, is my life this slog of one thing after another? Or can I experience, what kind of space and choice can I experience in this life with these demands that some of them I don't have a choice about? And for sure, meditation can be this menial slog of just kind of getting on with it and doing the same thing over and over again. And if you remember back, I'm guessing most of you have trained in something, you remember at the beginning it really is a slog, and it isn't until we start feeling some benefit that it makes it worth the slog and the repetition, and then it can get more interesting. But also in practice we can get stale, and sometimes it can turn into an experiment to just feed our perfectionist tendencies. And I think meditation kind of secretly attracts introverts and perfectionists. And I guess I'd have to kind of own up to moments of both of those things. Yeah. So open awareness meditation, though, involves letting whatever comes up in our practice to be okay, not making things taboo, and truly making a space for feelings, dreams, thinking, narratives, memories. I don't know if you guys saw the poster that came out with the advertisement for this talk, which was a child looking into an aquarium. And I love that image because you can see the reflection of the child's face, but also you think about how it's like when we go up to an aquarium and we're just looking at this whole world of creatures, colors, and there's this sense of awe and mystery and delight, and a sense of receptivity as well. If you look in that child's face, or even ourselves thinking of moments that invoke awe, it's not those moments where we're so fixed on how it should be. There's kind of like, oh, what's here? As adults, think about the last time that you've each experienced something awesome in nature. So I'm just invite everybody to just think back. What was something, maybe it was a sunset, a sunrise, maybe you were looking at the ocean on the horizon. Maybe you were stopped, you were walking in a forest and you stopped and looked up at the trees and just look at that view, looking up at the sky and the shape that the tree makes. If you can remember that moment of seeing, just that split moment of seeing something beautiful and impressive, I'm guessing that at that moment, we're not being perfectionists. We're actually just taking it in. Do any of us look at something in nature and say, oh, that sunset, it's beautiful, but oh, if we could just have that tree a little bit to the left, and if we could just have like a little less orange at the top, a little more yellow, we're kind of not doing that. We're in this receptive mode, and we're not trying to fix things. Does that make sense to you guys? Yeah. And we're not engaged as fixing something, because we're just taking it in, we're receiving it. So it seems to me that in this life, this quality of meeting experience is most what we're after. We can come at things with this idea of seeing something coming, and experience a difficulty, and just getting ready to, okay, I'm just going to conquer this thing. And we've already decided we have to conquer it before we meet it. The other thing we can do is we can meet an experience and just collapse under it, you know? So if you've read Vidyamala Birch's work, it's about blocking and drowning. But there's that third way, is like, how can I meet a situation and just kind of know it? I think that's what's happening in moments in nature, certainly for children, a lot more than adults, just those moments of receptivity and not wanting to change. I'm also thinking that in our lives that this attitude is useful, because we need a view of the situation of our life outside the box, seeing reality a lot clearer. Like, this way of meeting experience is really seeing reality, as opposed to fighting it. And it doesn't mean that we get passive about things. We actually just meet an experience so that we can know it and then know what comes next. So I feel that in teaching MBSR and teaching retreats, more and more I'm appreciating how a more allowing meditation practice helps us to learn self-acceptance, because we're practicing accepting experience, and it's hard to do that if we're not accepting ourselves. And therefore we can develop flexibility and creativity and patience and trust. All things that are pretty useful to have in life. So from that point of view, meditation can be a microcosm of our life. Like, what am I doing in my practice? And is that the thing I'm wanting to nurture in my life? So if my practice is tense and constricted, maybe that's not going to be so helpful to me off the cushion. So if you train, if I can see your faces, who's done some kind of a training method in meditation, MBSR or some other way of learning? Yeah. And you probably noticed that that kind of training takes you through various stages. It takes you, one builds upon another. And this incremental method is really useful for getting a lay of the land. And it involves usually coming back to something as an object of meditation. And it's usually the breath. But there's a lot going on that we can pay attention to. You know, right now we can be paying attention to our breath, but we've also got arms and legs, a trunk. We have a sense of temperature in the room, the soles of our feet. So by no means is breath the only thing. And this in our early training, this coming back to the breath, it's wonderful because it helps develop stability. So we get to kind of, you know, learn how to be stable, you know, and it allows us to know the difference between what's physical and what's conceptual. So we could be sitting there in a story of something. And then we go, oh, right, okay, I've got arms and legs and and a breath. So I must be having a body. So we come back to something physical. And so I find that's really useful, just like really knowing the difference between thinking and sensing. This is really important. So training allows us to do that. But hopefully our practice is also growing more than just stability and knowing the difference between the mental world and the physical world. Hopefully we're getting some resilience and flexibility and some spaciousness. If we found ourselves in a rocky boat, let's say each one of us is in a boat and it's a pram and we're on the ocean, and the ocean's really calm, then that might feel fine. But when it starts to get a bit wavy, we don't want to have the rigidity of staying still inside a boat. We want to be able to lean left and right so that we can actually stay stable in the boat. So you stay stable in something that's moving because you're making adjustments. You go forward and back so that you're actually not tipping over. So that sense of being stable is really important. And I think how we practice and our attitude in practice will make that possible or not. So can you imagine, rather than clenching our attention, practice like this, actually holding our attention, or let's say before you meditating going, okay, here I go. So everybody who can see me try, just taking your hands up and making two fists. Imagine really holding our attention like that. Okay, I'm gonna go meditate. I'm gonna come back to the breath. I'm going to follow my thoughts or emotions or whatever it is, right? Notice the kind of effort that takes. And then open your hands and allow them to rest on your legs, let's say. And notice this kind of attention. This is kind of receptivity, and this is kind of effort, right? And there's a real difference in intention between those two. So can we imagine, rather than clenching our attention, I mustn't wander, or I have to do it like this, or I have to do it like that, or following instructions, that we could just receive, right? Any comments so far on that? Does that make sense to anybody at all? Feel free to unmute yourself if you want to have a few words before we go on.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, Mick.
Yeah, I like it, and it feels to me it's tapping into like a sense of effortlessness, that it's not something that needs to be efforted to do, and that the flow of the attention can almost, it feels, proceeds on its own somehow.
Yeah.
But there was something I was writing just as you started this talk, which seems kind of relevant now to the first part of what you were saying. And I was writing that I'd like to ask myself more often, what can I create from this situation? Or how can I, what can I make of this, like here and now? And what do I want to create? And it seemed, when I was just listening to you talk, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I feel like that works quite well into kind of accepting what's here and then building some kind of excitement as it's like some material for you to build or design or create something else from it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love what you're saying, because it's material, isn't it? It's the material of our lives. So we show up, you know, there's a cliche, but I think it's true. It's like we can only sit with the mind that we have. So if we actually sit with that mind, not the one we want to have, then we can see the material and feel it. Yeah.
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 Thanks.
Thank you. I like this metaphor of, if anybody's ever learned to play an instrument, the flute or the piano or the guitar, you know, when you learn to play an instrument, first you learn to hold it, and it feels really strange because it doesn't feel like part of your body, and you kind of don't know where anything goes. And then you practice kind of blowing in it, and there's not much sound if it's a wind instrument. And then you kind of master that. And then you kind of practice your fingers, and you do scales, right? And you're learning through scales, you're getting flexibility, you're kind of sensing this body proprioception of when I have my finger here, I get this note, and there's kind of a strong learning that happens from the bottom up. But the point of that isn't to get good at scales. It isn't to get good at practice. We're doing that so that one day we can actually play music, or play free jazz, or just play for pleasure. So I think of meditation that way, is there's these things we do, you know, at stages, and whether that stage is 8 weeks, 6 years, or more, it doesn't really matter. But I'm kind of a proponent of opening things up, yeah, so that we can really just not be so narrow, because I think that's what we want in life. So what I propose tonight is that we'll do some practice, and it's going to be unguided for a particular reason, because I really can invite you to let your life enter your meditation, whatever it might be, and maybe let go even 5% of this idea of I have to always be coming back to something. And after we practice, so we'll practice about 25 minutes or so. And if you can have a paper and pen close by, then you'll have that ready, so that when I ring the bell, then I'll invite you to just journal, you know, and we'll just do that 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll do some sharing. And I'll say a bit about the journaling now, because if I talk about it after the meditation, it'll kind of interrupt your flow of things. So in journaling, first of all, if you don't want to journal, just sit and reflect. And what you're reflecting on is remembering what happened during practice. What do you remember, you know? And you might remember, oh, I went here, and then I heard a noise, and then I was thinking about someone in my family. Oh, and then I noticed that my chest, you know, I felt something in my chest. I noticed a feeling of regret, and then it kind of went blank. I don't remember. So don't worry about trying. It's a bit clunky at first, so don't try to avidly remember everything. It's just kind of whatever you remember will be fine. An easy way to do is to write down what you remember first. Something will have stood out from the practice, and you can write it down. And try to stick to what happened in the meditation. Consider the content of your thoughts, the tone of your emotions, your relationship to your experience. Did you hear sounds, feel sensations, have colors, have visuals? And how did you relate to that at the time? So we're going to allow thoughts, feelings, emotions to move around. And the idea being is that there's no taboo. It's just not this taboo, like let your mind wander, go into a fantasy, knowing that whenever you need to, you can always come back if you want to whatever some kind of stability is for you. And if you're new to meditation, you probably know what feels safe for you. You know, it might be your bum on the chair. It's something that feels reliable to you. You might have your eyes open and just look around the room. But don't force yourself to settle on a perch, right? The idea is you allow yourself to settle, and then when you feel like, okay, that's enough, I'm just going to really just open things up. And if as we go into practice, you have this idea of, well, you know, tonight, actually, I was really planning to do this other thing, then do that. I mean, use this time any way you want to do whatever practice you want. But if you want to undertake this kind of open awareness on steroids, then you can go for this. So whatever arises in the meditation is okay, and nothing is really inherently taboo. We're just going to let our attention go where it's drawn. And if you see you're going down some vortex, you have a choice. You can go, not so interesting. I might come back. And then settle again, and then go back again. How does that sound, you guys?
Sure.
Good. Yeah, let's see it happen. So you can reflect afterwards, you can draw, you can journal, and then we'll chat about it. So I'll lead us in, and then there'll be silence, and until the bell rings. So, choosing a comfortable position, with the support of a chair, a couch, a cushion, or leaning against the wall if that's better. It's much easier to settle when you're comfortable. And if you want to lay down and have your legs up on a chair or some other position, perfectly fine. And if you become uncomfortable, just moving slowly and carefully into another posture. Can you imagine letting thoughts, feelings, emotions, and your attention moving around? Can you imagine that whatever arises in this meditation is okay? Can you imagine letting your attention to go where it wants to go? And above all, can you imagine being kind and gentle to yourself through this practice? So if anybody joined late, we're doing some journaling for about 5 minutes now. So I might open it up because we have about 6 minutes left if we keep to time. And I mean, clearly you can go on and write more and fill it in. But if you're up for it, unmute yourself and maybe just share, what was that like to do that? Maybe it's familiar, maybe it was new to you. What did it feel like in your body, in your heart? Wendy, did you want to say something?
Yes, so you can hear me okay?
Yeah, just speak up a little bit.
Okay.
Yes.
I have done that before. I went to a retreat once where we did that. And I just found it, because I had a task to do, which was sort of observing what was coming and going.
Yeah.
I might remember it. I really enjoyed it. I felt like I was just really observing whatever was going to come along.
Mm.
And I felt that there was a light touch.
Mm.
I didn't have it was a bit like the open-handed thing. There was whatever was coming to come and go.
Mm-hmm.
Quite enjoyed it.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. Thank you. Mm. Anybody else?
Yeah, I used to practice like that a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, and I haven't done it since then.
Mm.
It felt like a wild ride.
Yeah.
I wrote in my journal, it felt like being bareback on a Brumby or something.
Yeah.
There were some times where I was like, just seeing some, habits, mental habits and thought spirals, and being like, no, just come back from there, and just redirecting a few times, and but some interesting. I felt like it was much more. Some sort of bubbling of insights happening as well, and one of them was just in reflecting. It was reflecting about reflecting, actually. So in reflecting on the day's activities or on meditations, just the importance of celebrating the wins. And I feel like quite often for me, being like, oh, what can I work on? What are the habits that I want to let go of or want to change? And this, and just ignoring, the growth that has happened, or the situations that flowed really well and that a year ago been really different or something, and paying more attention to celebrating those things. And there are a couple of other sweet just pop-ups like that. So
very interesting. I mean, I think like while you were talking about that, I was thinking, it's kind of like if we take the goal out of meditation, not always, but at least then what's left is an intention to go, I'm just going to sit with what's here. And it's very interesting when we take the goal out of something, but we keep just the intention to be present. It's different kind of what can arise and how we're relating to it. And
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for that. Anybody else? Yes, Lee. Hi, Lee. Unmute yourself. Now we can hear you. Go.
Okay, good. That was very interesting. It was very freeing. I had quite a lot of sense of freedom with instructions, of being very permissive and very open. And so, I mean, my mind went everywhere, but I became aware a few times of feeling like the possibility of a very spacious mind, and lots of thinking. I'd be drifting off lots and lots and lots of thinking, and thinking, oh no, there I'm thinking again. But somehow the instruction helped not be so judgmental, quite permissive. And so it felt very freeing and the sense also of being kind to whatever came up, kind to oneself. So it was, I found it, I felt drowsy at times, you know, a lot of experiences during the time. And then it was very freeing also to just not worry about remembering, but just write the, you know, some of the things that had come up, you know. So it was an expansive experience.
Yeah. And I want to echo, I want to echo also part of what you said and what Wendy was mentioning is I think the first time we do this, it's a bit clunky and we're going, oh, I got to remember that. Well, I remember that, you know, like, and that's just like the clunkiness at the beginning. So at some stage, if you do, I mean, I encourage you guys, all of you, to do a retreat like this. It's really, really interesting and freeing. And you kind of get past the point of, oh, what do I remember? You just kind of forget that you're going to journal even in a way. It's quite interesting. I'll be leading a retreat with Linda Madaro, who's a teacher from California. And I've been to her retreats and I'm, you know, I kind of really get along with her. So she's coming to New South Wales and we're doing a 4-day retreat doing this. So there's a lot of room for creativity and it's a really interesting process. I've myself benefited and see how much people can benefit from it. And especially meditation teachers, because we think about it a lot. And I know some of you are meditation teachers, you know, we think about meditation and what we should do. And it's great to just blast it a little bit or a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So I might leave, so our time's up, but I might leave us with a poem that I think captures some of this, an attitude to meditation, of seeing it as just something that's accompanying us and not this place to try to fix and improve ourselves constantly. And this poem, and I'll put her website and some names of books and things onto the Openground page. So the title of this poem is, What is Meditation? Sitting with breathing and body aches, with pillows, bright lights, and wondering if you can really call this meditation. It feels like driving on the 405. Sitting and sleeping, sitting and ruminating, sitting and waiting, not moving, not running, not doing anything. Sitting and making to-do lists, redecorating the kitchen, writing an email to Soma. Did she get stood up on Valentine's Day or not? Sitting, wallowing, sitting, swallowing, sitting and forgetting and wanting to forget. The song that doesn't go out of my mind, You Can Always Get What You Want, I hate the Rolling Stones, or Hold the Pickles, Hold the Lettuce, Special Orders, Don't Upset Us. Sitting from a young age, sitting into old age, sitting from habit, it's good for you, everyone says so. Sitting from the doctor's orders, he doesn't know what other antidepressants, anti-anxiety, painkiller, and sleeping pills to give you. Sitting over a breakup, sitting over the summer, over the high holidays, the trip to Kenya, over the river and through the woods. Sitting to get through 40 minutes because your lower back and knees scream like glass lodged in your bones. Sitting when your sister hanged herself from a second-story balcony in San Francisco with a bed sheet and a rosary around her neck. Sitting out this life, sitting through past lives, through car alarms, erotica, menopause, cancer, through your early morning meeting with the board of directors because the volume of the Insight timer chime on your new Samsung Galaxy phone was turned off. Sitting into this life, sitting. Whatever you experience while you sit with the intention to meditate is meditation. Yeah. So it's provocative, but why not? Well, it's been great to be with you guys and to be with the people who I can't see. You're still there. Hello, Lee. And hope to catch you. Hello, Kaz, who makes this all possible. Yeah. So, really good. And thank you for your participation. And catch you next month. I think it's Heather who's going to talk to us next month. So good night, everybody. Have a beautiful Sunday night. Yeah, take care and stay in touch. Bye-bye. See ya.